LoreWarrior Online, SGT-8R, Sagittaire. Overview. Although the Sagittaire saw production in mid-3063, Robinson's semi-isolationist policies with regard to the Civil War kept the design out of the general military use until much later. As the Civil War would progress, however, the fighting took a more nasty personal turn for the worse. Mech warriors began to demand machines that were superior at point-blank range, whether for fighting in narrow city streets or for brawling out in the open no-man's land between cities. The Sagittaire was just such a design. Capabilities. A Pitban extra-light engine powers the laser-heavy Sagittaire, giving it a top speed of 54 kph, which is directly in line with mechs of similar weight. Of greater interest, however, are the Hilco lifters that are installed in the legs and centerline, making the Sagittaire one of the relatively few assault mechs with jump capability, giving it a great deal of tactical flexibility. That, of course, doesn't even take into account the psychological impact of watching a 95-ton battle mech fly through the air upon untested warriors. If that wasn't enough, the Sagittaire mounts a heavy weapon configuration tied into one of the new Federated Sun targeting computers. A single ERPPC gives this mech striking power from a distance. At ranges that are close, the Sagittaire will tie in 2 large pulse lasers, a trio of medium pulses, and even a single small pulse laser. 2 more medium pulse lasers are provided with rear firing arcs for extra protection, though with 18 tons of armor the need for such a stratagem is debatable. The Sagittaire's pulse technology combined with the targeting computer allow MechWarrior to maintain a high rate of mobility and still hold an edge against most other mechs. When keeping the Sagittaire's feet firmly placed on the ground, the design is simply devastating. Deployment. Deployed from Robinson Battle Works in 3063, the machine first saw heavy action against House Kurita, as Duke James Sandoval committed heavy resources toward taking and holding a half-dozen Combine worlds. The Sagittaire was instrumental in the assault on Proserpina, where a lance of these machines destroyed a company of samurai from the 9th Benjamin Regulars in a series of ill-fated one-on-one duels. Later, during House Kurita's successful counter-assault, the Dragon made a concerted effort to capture or salvage several of the Sagittaire design for their own use. As Catherine Steiner-Davian later tightened her rein on the Draconis March, Duke Sandoval allowed more of these machines to be sold into her loyalist army. This was short-lived, however, as Tancred Sandoval deposed his father not long after as the March Lord, and then shifted the entire Sagittaire line into bolstering his own troops, and those regiments supporting Victor Steiner-Davian. As an example of the wide appeal of this machine, an allied company and a loyalist company were deployed on New Avalon, each with a lance of Sagittaires. They clashed during battle for the continental capital of Flensburg, and only 3 allied machines walked away under their own power. All 3 were Sagittaires, and between them, they accounted for 8 kills out of 12 enemy mechs. So the Sagittaire is a 95-ton assault. Its chassis is the Skue Heavy TRQ. Its power plant is the Pitban 285XL, cruise speed of 32, max speed of 54, with its Hildco LFT-9X jump jets, giving it a 90-meter jump capacity. Its armor is Starshield Special Heavy, and its armament is a single Defiance 1001 extended range PPC, backed with 2 Magna 900P large pulse lasers, 5 Magna 600P pulse lasers mediums, and a Magna 200P small pulse laser. It's manufactured by Robinson Standard Battle Works on, well, Robinson. Its communication system is the Sony MSF-31, and its targeting and tracking system is the Federated Stalker with targeting module. Didn't think you'd see Sony listed in there, would you? So yeah, stat-wise, it's a machine that has a walk of 3, run of 5, jump of 3, with 17 double heat sinks for a total of 34 heat dissipation. Its head has 9 armor, the CT has 44, its center torso rear is 15, while the right and left torsos have 30 with 10 each on the rear. The arms have 31, and the legs have 39 armor. The setup is interesting. There is a rear-mounted head medium pulse, a right arm collection of a large pulse, a medium pulse, and a small pulse laser, while the left arm has a large pulse and a medium pulse. The targeting computer is located in the right torso, alongside another medium pulse laser, and the ERPPC is in the left torso. Finally, there's a CT-mounted medium pulse on the rear. And then there's the 3 jump jets spread across the side torsos. Unfortunately, I don't think the artwork quite sells the dread of meeting a Sagittaire. Obviously, if you are aware of how pulse lasers work on the table, I know some people listening are largely familiar with MechWarrior Online and, you know, some of the previous games, but basically, pulse lasers reduce the difficulty to hit a target by 2. So, compared to a standard laser, you've got a much higher chance to hit, and if you factor in the targeting computer as well, that also gives you an extra bonus. So technically, it's a -3 to the difficulty to hit, as far as I remember. So yeah, an all-pulse-equipped assault mech that can jump is pretty fucking terrifying, to be honest. The only downside this thing has got is its speed. It gives you the ability to keep away, because the 2 large pulses are nasty, but at least engaging it at long range gives it the highest chance to miss. Once it gets into medium range, though, that's when things get very, very, very personally nasty. It's a machine that is incredibly deadly. The artwork, unfortunately, just looks so gaggle-fucked. There's just so many stupidly sized barrels and stuff, and the arms and the left and right torso. It's got these stupid clawed feet that make it look like it's got weird chicken feet. It's not really the design. Plus, when you look at in between the legs at the back there with the big, like the NASA-style rocket booster underneath it, it just really doesn't really sell it, unfortunately. I assume there has been other artwork of the Sagittaire since, because it is quite a frightening design, to say the least. It's not the worst piece of artwork in this book by far, but it's certainly, the artwork doesn't help to sell the narrative that we're given about this machine. And as I said, it's definitely the kind of machine that in an urban setting, this thing is deadly. There's not much that you would want to go one-on-one with a Sagittaire that you wouldn't expect to come back with bits missing if it won. I suppose if it did get into the melee, there is a chance that because it doesn't really have arms, there's a higher chance of being able to punch its head in. But even then, it's a machine that even if you do get that round where you do manage to ambush it in close range combat, it's going to be able to literally jump away from you. And again, in urban settings, that means it can just literally hop over from one street to another, and there's not much you can do unless you yourself have jump jets to keep up with it. And even then, it's going to jump into a position where it's probably got a chance of shooting you with some of its pulses. It's also twisting and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's a pretty nasty proposition. You're going to want to engage a Sagittaire with more troops than they have, just to be able to concentrate your firepower on the thing. This is a bit of a power game as Wet Dream, as far as machines are concerned, because of the way the rules work for the weaponry and the fact that it's so well armored, and in certain scenarios, this is the kind of thing that a dickhead GM drops on a group of players, with the idea of like, it's okay, you can beat it. Oh, don't worry, guys, just go work together to beat it. And obviously, the GM, he's actively trying to kill some players. He's trying to destroy mechs. If he's dropping one of these things against a player group. Especially if it's in the scenario where it's going to be tight, close quarters for the combat. Obviously, a much larger scale war game sort of setup where you've got lots and lots of units, like entire battalions and stuff going against each other. It's a different story, of course, because you can start bringing in things like off-map artillery and aerospace strikes. You've got tanks as well that you can more readily sort of throw into a fight to engage a machine like this at range. And it can be outranged. Obviously, you can pump it with Gauss weaponry, ERPPCs, obviously things like LRMs and stuff like that. But it's a machine that can more than happily absorb a lot of that firepower, and running 5 hexes at a time straight towards you while you're trying to outrange it is not an unpleasant kind of proposition. So. And obviously, these things are not going to be deploying on their own. They are going to have their own support thing. So if you've got long range, it's likely that it's probably got something that's long range to return that fire. So yeah, stripping the armor and getting into the internals is key. It's difficult. It's a very, very frightening proposition. And that's one of the things that assault mechs were just never really afforded in games like MechWarrior Online, because they're much larger, they're slower, more ponderous designs that don't really favor Obviously, the intended idea of their sheer mass and capable of firepower that they have, they never really felt in, again, referencing games like MWO, for instance, in a multiplayer scenario with real-time combat, they do suffer quite badly. Obviously, lighter, faster machines can very quickly outmaneuver a mech like a Sagittaire, because in those games it just doesn't have the ability to rotate quick enough to keep up. When in the realities of a tabletop, you would never throw a light machine at a Sagittaire in any sane scenario, because this thing will literally eat you alive. I mean, it would only take a turn of fire before that light machine was just scrap, probably, or wishing it was scrap. And most mediums and heavies are not going to want to engage one of those things and be the target of its ire, let's say. So yeah, it's in MWO. Yes, you also get custom builds of people building like horrendous like locusts and other things like that, just equipped with tons and tons of small pulse lasers, that kind of thing, that strip machines like this, and it makes kind of a mockery of the whole intent of BattleTech's kind of weight balance. Is it realistic within the terms of that game? Yes, it is, of course, because the faster moving unit has the ability of speed. In universe, faster moving units do have an advantage in being able to be less hit less often, but every hit in tabletop is quite bad for a light mech. It doesn't really matter what the weapon system is. It's a lot of armor that they lose quite quickly. Armor that their larger opponents can afford to take hits back in return for. Obviously, in real-time games like the MechWarrior series, very different scenario. I think HPS Battletech did a good job with the XCOM-style turn-based combat, where assault mechs really were a scary proposition. You could pump round after round after round into those things, and it could still keep going. And it's the same here on tabletop. I don't know if a MechWarrior game will ever actually get that kind of balance correct that makes it feel like light mechs should actually stay out of the fight as much as possible, usually try and use the terrain to their advantage and perform hit-and-run attacks, or work as a counter to other light mechs, rather than trying to go toe-to-toe with larger machines. At the top of my head, Living Legends did a decent job of this, where you could spawn light machines, and you could have some pretty decent loadouts, but again, it's one of those things where as soon as you do start taking return fire, it isn't going to go well for you. Your job is to scout, find targets, hold locks, and obviously capture points to help progress the team's objectives, not to try and farm kills, which was always good. Role warfare, that was the intent. MechWarrior Online, I think, completely got that ass backwards and very, very badly broken. But yeah, I'm on a tangent now. Thanks for listening, as always. Have a good one. And yeah, we'll probably by the time we come back here, I'll have either made the decision whether I want to record a new Fafnir with some post-ramble, or I'm just going to go straight to the Vanquisher. Whoa. Anyway, have a good one all. Bye.